This week's Torah portion, Tazria, I'd like to focus on a sage from Sefrou, Morocco. We dealt with him in Genesis, Rabbi Yehoshua, Shimon, Ovadia, a very humble sage. He wrote a commentary on the Bible, Torah v'Chaim. He wrote a halachic commentary, very humble, very wise. It's clear in his text that he knows Kabbalah, philosophy, Shas, he's read everything, but really a very humble person. We are told that the day he utters his last breath, all the village, all the Jews in Sefrou come cradling the home, and everyone together, when he's just about to pass away, we are told, screams out, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and then he utters his last breath. One of the interesting things about Torah v'Chaim is that in the introduction, so it was published by his son, David Ovadia, who publishes the manuscript that his father wrote on his commentary on the Bible, and his son also found a biography, an autobiography that Yehoshua Shimon wrote about his life. And of course, it wasn't an autobiography saying, "Look how great I am," but it's genuinely a fascinating piece of insights into what it was like living in Morocco in the turn of the century. And he talks about what it was like learning in Cheder, what it was like learning when he was 13, getting married, the birth of the Zionist movements in Morocco. He talks, for example, about a German Jew, Rabbi Zev Halperin, who comes to Fez. He wasn't in Fez, but he hears about this, and he wants to start a Talmud Torah, and the males in the city don't want to, open the Talmud Torah. So Zev Halperin goes to the women. And the women, he says, it's thanks to the women of Fez that a Talmud Torah was opened in my time, the same Talmud Torah that then we copied this idea in Sefrou. So it has marvelous insights into really an in-depth understanding of what it was like to live in Morocco in the turn of the century, and really from a humble viewpoint, which doesn't put the narrator in the front. In this week's Torah portion, Tazria, the first verse we know, Ishaki Tazria, right, a woman who conceives seed and then gives birth to a male. She's impure for 7 days. And Rabbi Yehoshua Shimon tells us, right, he starts off, we know the classic interpretation that the sages teach us about this. Why does it say Ishaki Tazria, that she shall conceive seed? It comes to tell us that if she is satisfied first during intercourse, it'll be a male. If it is the husband who is satisfied first, it'll be a female, baby girl. And he says, but he says, I'd like to add something based on the day and age we live in today, and what I think the word kitazria, conceive seed, includes. He says, in our day and age, we have doctors, marvelous doctors, who are investigating everything, and they know how to take a syringe, an injection, and inject seed into the woman's abdomen, into the woman's body, inject male seed if a couple has difficulty to conceive, the seed through the doctor's injection. It is a form of conceiving seed. And he says, I think our Holy Torah, by saying kitazria, a woman who conceives seed, is to include even this phenomenon in our day and age of doctors including seed. This comes to teach us that it doesn't matter how the seed enters into the woman's body, be it through intercourse, be it through a syringe, the woman still becomes impure, and so on and so forth. And he then discusses, interestingly, a lot of halachic commentaries that talk about this phenomenon of the syringe and the seed going in. And wait a second, if it's a Kohenite who gave that seed and enters into the woman's body, then is the baby going to be a Kohen or not? So all sorts of questions, but he says, this is why I think the word kitazria, it is to include all forms of seed entering into the woman's body. And he says much the same way that when it says Bayom HaShmini, on the 8th day, a boy must be circumcised, the reason the Bible says 8th day is so that if someone would come to think and say, well, maybe it's a mamzer, maybe we don't know who the father is, it doesn't matter. Jewish boy is born, 8th day, you have to have a brit. He says much the same way. Once it says, if she conceives seed, doesn't matter how it goes in, you follow what the Bible says. Thoughts on the Torah portion from Rabbi Yehoshua Shimon, Ovadia of Sefrou. I highly recommend Torah v'Chaim. Shabbat Shalom and Chodesh Tov.